Okay, well, it hasn't even been 48 hours since I made the first video. I kind of tied a link in to Facebook, so um, a lot of local people have seen my first video and have made some comments and have actually come up and spoke to me about it, which is pretty neat, something different. Uh, so now, not even 48 hours later, I got to make another video, and what has happened. First of all, a lot of things, the situation has changed. Okay, the first video I made, it's kind of like toilet paper shortage, kind of comical, as usual, whimsical type of thing. And as usual with snowstorms or imminent natural disaster, minor inconvenience when you go shopping, people, strange behavior and everything else. Well, in that time, so much has changed so rapidly, okay, that is no longer funny, and I'm realizing that the same thing is happening on a global scale. It's not just where I live here in the central part of North Carolina. It's not just the United States. What started it all off is when I was out at the flea market doing my thing yesterday, I got a text message from a friend of mine who lives in Austria. Um, I'm not quite sure exactly where he lives, but he lives close to Vienna. It's within traveling distance, and he's in a city. Okay, so he's not in a rural setting. He's living in a city of some sort. And he said the same thing. People panicking, toilet paper, going crazy. A lot of real nervous behavior, which the epicenter in Europe, okay, is Italy, I guess. And if you go north of Italy, there's mountains. You cross the mountains, you're in Austria. So he's living kind of close to the epicenter of the big crisis as this goes on. Now, I do have a lot of subscribers. I know this is off topic. We're not talking about the antique firearms or reloading or shooting sports, but now it's all kind of tying in together what I'm going to talk about because it's global. And I have a lot of friends and subscribers both in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South America. Some people in Asia have contacted me on certain topics. I don't know if they'll see this. But any of my foreign subscribers or viewers that see this, please feel free in the comment section to put your comments on what's happening in your specific country. Okay, because I've looked around, I've contacted people outside the United States, mostly in Europe, and I'm trying to get a perspective of what's going on a global situation, because now it's kind of getting to where what's going on here, even with the virus, is kind of frightening, and I believe there's something a lot more serious that's going to affect a lot of people around the world going on other than this virus pandemic. So let's start with the virus itself. Last year I had a viral upper respiratory infection in my lungs, which was a horrible thing. I was sick for a month, and for one whole week I went to urgent care, doctors, everything. I coughed for a week, nonstop. Couldn't sleep. I had to sit in a chair. If I laid down, the coughing was violent. Don't know what virus it was. They didn't call it anything. Okay, it could be monkey virus for all I know. All right, but several people got this condition about 1 year ago, around March, April is when I got sick. It's about the same time. Somebody my wife works with, her husband had it too, and he was in the same shape. We're both about the same age, in our late 50s, and got this thing. Okay. The only thing that they could do for me was they said, it's viral, there's no antibiotics, no treatment for it, your body has to fight it off, and that's it. You either got better or you didn't, end of story. So this is kind of the frightening thing. So again, like and a lot of people say, okay, all of this, there's the flu every year, there's a virus, I got one last year, okay? What virus it was, I have no idea. They didn't give it a name, they just said you have a viral infection. So what they're trying to do is, I guess this one spreads rapidly, it's bad. And what they're trying to do is stem, okay, the outbreak or a pandemic with this. I guess from what I seen on the news earlier this morning in Italy, they didn't take it too seriously, and this is what spread out. A lot of these European countries like Italy, there's cruise ships that go there, there's tourism, this and that. And it is a business hub of, Europe, normal travel. People travel just anywhere between all countries on any given day for any reason, going through. And if you spread something in an airport or something, which probably is what happened, you went to the airport, everyone, is notorious going on airplane travel to catch some kind of illness. So probably started from that. So unfortunately for Italy, everyone's kind of saying it's the epicenter because they did not take the precautions, travel bans, all this other political stuff going on, and that's another thing. We're going to talk about politics now. So I can see where this is a problem, and it's a real problem. So this ain't a BS bullshit type of thing here. This is a problem. So now what has happened in the last 48 hours, my wife was talking, they're going to close her school district. Well, later on that evening, Friday evening and that, they ended up closing the school district. So by Saturday morning, or what was it, Thursday or something, but by Saturday morning she knew the school district was closed. Okay, excuse me. Which, by Saturday afternoon, not all of them in North Carolina were closed. Some were, some weren't. I talked to my family in New York. New York City was shut down already by Friday, and upstate where they live in that, I guess all the schools now are closed for almost a month. Not just 2 weeks or 14 days, just about a month. Okay? And I guess my wife said somewhere she's seen, I can't verify it, I didn't see it, but all K through 12 schools in the United States of America are closed as of today. Now all the politicians, last week it was the governors, now the president's been on. The president has declared a national state of emergency. Okay, so this kind of changes things, and this is where it's getting kind of strange. I guess the game plan is shut everything down, shut down travel and stuff, and close the schools, and tell everyone basically to stay home for, I guess it's a 2-week period. And the whole idea behind this is to shut down everything and control movement, or make movement or going places like to work or congregating. All sporting events are closed. All, I mean, they tell you that, but like I said, the ridiculous thing is everyone's cramming into the damn store at Costco right on top of each other when they're telling you not to do this. All travel's being canceled and closed. A lot of people are canceling all their vacation plans and shit. Nobody's going on a cruise ship, I'll tell you that much, or staying off of airplanes. Okay, I've seen it on TV a day ago where, usually you get on a flight, it's cram packed, there's 5 people on the plane. Okay. So the game plan is restrict all the movement, seal off national borders and stuff. I don't know if it's going to get to where we're going to seal off in the United States, traveling, like say I want to leave the state and travel, if, we're going to have checkpoints or what, but you never know, it may look like that. And the whole idea is to constrict movement, so this viral infection for that 14-week period or something, they're trying to dampen the spread of it. So like they said on a curve, if we held everybody up and don't let people congregate, move, or go to work, this is something new that I've never seen in my whole life, where they're telling people don't go to work. And a lot of places are shutting down, not just restaurants or bars, manufacturing or anything. They're setting up a national emergency where people, if you don't go to work, you can have your unemployment extended, you'll get some sort of aid or relief in one form or the other, either Um, there's money, so many billions, which is another cool. Where the hell are these billions come from for this whole emergency bailout? Because I seen on the news yesterday where they said that hourly workers don't have to be afraid that there will be some sort of fund to compensate them for any time lost. Because a lot of people, the companies I work for, you ain't there, you ain't getting paid. There is no. So this is another suspicious thing. All of a sudden this came out, and a lot of us look at it as with suspicion, okay? And there's a reason why, and I'll go over that later. So the whole idea is we're going to stop the spread of disease, so they're shutting down everything. What is curious to me is this is universal and global, okay? I haven't got back from my friend. I asked him a few questions in Austria, but I've noticed in Poland, they've sealed all the borders. They have closed all restaurants, bars, and malls. You can still go buy food, and the same thing I was watching on the news Friday and that, there was a panic. Everyone was running into the stores, buying food and stuff, pulling stuff off the shelves as fast as they could. And there was this panic. And it upset a lot of people. And the thing is, the Prime Minister had to get on TV. There are no food shortages. What happened was during the panic, and they had the people from the different grocery stores, it had to be Warsaw or something, where they said people came in such a rush, bought everything off the shelves, all kinds of food, that our employees didn't have time to go in the back in our storage and bring out the other products. So there is no crisis, and they're trying to send a message: don't panic, don't go out and buy all kinds of food. And after a couple days, like I said, Friday was a weird day. All my friends said the same thing. And we've come to the conclusion, okay, it was a little bit of a weird panic, and it's normal. Like I said, it happens. Snowstorms, whatever, stupid stuff. Kind of funny, and we all crack jokes about it. So that's the message. But they're also doing what we're doing here. They've closed a lot of public places, closed the schools. And now they're setting up, and this is going back to the old communist times, Eastern European countries. They've showed where they've reopened the border security. So in other words, the country's sealed off, okay? And not only do they have the border police and border guards, but they've mobilized the military. And a lot of these European countries, whenever there's time, like we're sending the National Guard, they mobilized the military. So now all these old checkpoints from back in the Cold War era and the Iron Curtain, and because with the European Union, all these borders were open. So the European Union was taking all these European countries, putting them together, and eliminated all this border crossing, whatever. If you had a passport that said you were a member of the EU, like in Poland or in Germany or something, you were free to travel like it's one big country. Okay, that's what they were working on in the European Union. And that was what they've been working towards for years now, since the 90s, since the fall of communism. It's to eliminate all this where you don't need a visa or whatever, you can freely travel without no restriction. Well, that just went out the window, okay? All the borders are sealed, okay, in Poland that I know of. We just called on the telephone in the Ukraine. Ukraine, they're in the middle of a war. Their economic situation has always sucked for years. So this isn't really hurting the economy. It's already in bad shape. But schools are closed in the Ukraine, and the border is sealed. Russia claims it only, and Russia's a huge country. When you look at it, it's gigantic. They say they only got 80 cases of the coronavirus, supposedly on the news, and they have sealed their borders. Even they're having Turkey help seal the one border down there in the south, and all their borders are sealed. There is no traveling because the Russian news agency, I don't know which one it was, I don't know if it was TASS or not, stated that the 80 cases of the coronavirus they have in the country came from people who were outside traveling back. That's who had it. All right. right? So, and again, a lot of these countries, in the rural areas where people don't travel and are isolated more or less, okay, outside of any of the major cities, there's no problem. It's all traveling through the international airports and all this other stuff. And all borders have been sealed, which Europe with all this stuff, the crisis in Syria, all these other things, they had a lot of people migrating and coming through illegally, crossing over this. So now all these borders are being sealed. There's no more of this free travel. So this is something a little bit different. I don't know. Now, another thing is, fellow went to the VA on Friday, went for one of his checkups, another old retired guy. He comes in with a sheet. When you pulled up, he said, I've gone there for my medical treatment at the VA facility. He goes, I go in there, he goes, there's police, and there's a barricade, and you got to stop. They hand you a sheet of paper, and they ask you a couple questions, and they say, fold this in half. One side is yellow, one side is green. And it says, answer these questions. Do you have a fever? Are you coughing? Blah, blah, blah. If you answered yes, then you hold up when you come up to the gate, the yellow side. If you answer no, you hold the other side of the paper up, and it's green, and you can pass. So he said, I'm not sick. And like I said, nobody around us in our little group there are coughing or ill. So he gets in, goes to his appointment and his checkup. And he said the scary thing was when you come up there, he goes, there were police and everything. You were stopped. And there were people around the vehicle. You weren't just driving in there. He held the car up, they let him go. And we asked him, did they test you or something? And I'm not quite sure whether they tested him or not, or we were joking with him. They test you right there for you left. And he said there were 3 or 4 ways to exit, which were all blocked off, and you had to exit through one choke point. So he goes, all this, and it was a regional facility, so there's a lot of people coming in and out of there on a daily basis. He said it just tied everything up, but he goes, it was constricted and guarded. So this is where the fears started. And going back to the economy, it's quite unusual. I've never seen, so now we're restricting travel, and they're telling people to stay at home, and they're telling people not to go to work. Okay, so not only are the restaurants losing their business, and their employees aren't doing anything, and again, this is global. This ain't just in my town. This is a problem everywhere. And even the foreign news agencies, everyone's saying that there will be money available to pay lost wages, to help companies who are suffering and gonna suffer. Because if you shut any, like a restaurant or something, down, that means for 2-3 weeks, if you close, you have no income. All right, so you can't pay your employees, pay your rent, pay your light bill, whatever you got going on here. It's pretty serious stuff. So locally, Duke Energy said that during this whole national crisis, if someone doesn't pay their bill, they will not disconnect power for late payment of bills, okay, because of a national emergency. And this is what, like I'm saying, a lot of people are looking kind of suspiciously. We've never seen this before, at least not in the U.S. Socialist countries like in Europe, I don't know their policies or their economic policies. A lot of them are quite weak, like Poland and a lot of the ex-Eastern European countries like Romania, Bulgaria. The Russians mentioned their sphere of influence is still like Estonia and Latvia up there. How the economy, or how they're going to compensate people so they just don't go flat broke. Or you're talking economic collapse. But not economic collapse for a few people. You're talking economic collapse on a global scale. All right, not just, hey, a lot of people in the restaurants business here in Greensboro, because they canceled the sporting events, are going to be hurting. You're talking manufacturing, if they restrict or close places, they're closing the government where everyone's communicating from online, which is unusual. The schools are closed, okay? Now the kids are home. Some people, they're not going to be able to go to work just because the damn kids are home. So if the schools are closed, so is the daycare. Okay, so for working families, this is a crisis here in this country. Okay, and in Europe, they're talking these, like I said, these smaller countries. The economy is very frail, and all of this. You're talking global economic collapse. Now the frightening thing is, they're telling you not to worry about it. They're telling you not to worry about it, and of course you're looking at, nobody wants this illness to spread on a huge level, because that's not good for anyone. So everyone says, okay, put all the nonsense aside, the initial panicking, we're going to go with this. But there are a lot of the conspiracy people talking about government lockdowns. I guess New Rochelle has been quarantined, the whole community, by the Army National Guard. So this is coming true. Okay? I don't know if they're going to restrict movement, like for me to go from one city to the other, or say I want to leave the state and drive out. I don't know if they're going to restrict that. They're putting up mobile checkpoints to check people or test. Now the testing, this is another controversy. They have some sort of test where they can swab your mouth or something and test if you have the virus. Okay? So this is a big political thing. They're all talking about it in Washington, signed bills and everything, passed laws. They're going to get this testing stuff out. But, on one TV show, they're kind of saying that you kind of caught with your pants down. They don't have enough of these test kits out or produced, and they're working round the clock to do this. So a day ago, when they showed a map of the U.S., there were several states, and most of them in the middle, like North Dakota or whatever. They always have the least of any disease or illness because they have the lowest population of most of the states out of the 50 states. Well, now that they said testing has gone out, they show that there's coronavirus in all of the continental 50 states, other than West Virginia, because I guess the mule train didn't get the test kits down in there. That's the only one left in one, because they haven't reported back. But there is a case of the coronavirus in all states now. Okay, so this is pandemic level. They're setting up mobile places where you can be tested. So I don't know if you're, in the next week or so, if I try to drive into Greensboro, am I going to be stopped on the outskirts of town and tested for the coronavirus? Also another thing, your fever. Now they had them little handheld thermometers. They use infrared. I was fooling around with it. I got one. I gotta go find it. And they said that, people put it on your forehead to see if you have a fever. And while they had a TV show where the guy said he goes, here, I'm going to shine it on your forehead, I'm going to shine it on this other part by your eye. Okay, something about in your eye in the corner here where the tear duct is, that's where this infrared beam has to go. There was like a 3 or 4 degree temperature difference. Okay. To actually get a human's temperature with a visual infrared scan, it has to be in a little corner of the eye. So what they have done is in airport security, like when you go through the metal detector, now they have a little camera that looks at your face, and it was showing it on TV. And you walk through this detector, and the metal detectors are found in airports, government buildings, and all this other stuff. I think they have them at the Coliseum too for the big events. These things are around, okay? So now they're going to adapt these cameras to where not only they look for metal, but if you walk through there, and the guy shows a guy, he walks through and he looks at the camera, and it has a temperature reading on this screen. It's like an addition, and it reads, 97 degrees or something, and then the light's green. So he walks through the thing, he's good. So he goes back with his assistant, and he goes, "Is this a fresh cup of hot coffee?" And he goes, "Yes." It's all right, thank you. So he goes with the cup of coffee, walks through the scanner again. He says he stood back and he comes up to where he's going through, holding this coffee up by his head. And now that infrared camera read 130 degrees, alarms go off, red lights. So now they're going to be able to tell if you got a fever when you show up. When you stick your face in some sort of camera at the airport or wherever, if you got a fever, so that little questionnaire, like my friend, there ain't going to be no questionnaire. You're just going to be taken. And my question is, does this mean you will be removed from where you are and then detained and quarantined for 15 days somewhere? This is where it's starting to get scary. Also, these mobile checkpoints, you and your family are driving. They test you. One of you is in the car, has tested positive for the coronavirus. Are they going to pull you out of the vehicle and quarantine you on the spot? And then, have to detain you, basically. This is my question. This is where it's starting to get kind of frightening. Are we going to set up these weird checkpoints? And when you start thinking like that, it's not my intention to create panic or start, but is this where they're going? Because a lot of them are talking, just like they said, well, this can change, 48 hours ago they said this can change, and we're thinking of closing the schools. Schools are closed. All this economic stuff's been going on in the past, rapidly. This has all happened rapidly. Now they're talking about testing. Well, if you're tested, say I go out to the store or something, or on the road, and I'm tested at a mobile test site, and I'm positive, are they going to take me out of my vehicle or quarantine me? To where I have to call my wife and say, hey, I went out to the grocery store again, but I'm quarantined for the next 14 days. I don't know, okay? This is the frightening thing, and things are changing. Now, they said that we're going to go through and be calm and go through the next 14 days and this and that. But they keep adding this crap in there. Well, for now, it looks like it's 14 days. It may be longer. So you're going to shut down everything for a month, maybe 2. Okay, which is scary. Are you going to be quarantining people you find traveling and wandering about, okay? They have a fever or symptoms or test positive for these test kits they're supposed to be distributed everywhere. Because already they're saying, well, we say we have a couple thousand cases, but people wandering around with the virus that aren't sick. The governor of Ohio said we could possibly have 100,000 cases other than the 10,000, 10 times more, because we have not set up a system to test and find people. This is where things are getting frightening now. Okay? Also, when you look at all these weird political and financial things here, globalization, going back, I mentioned the European Union, globalization has kind of failed. And there are all these conspiracies about somehow an event or something will change, where you're going to end up with a global government and a global currency. Okay? And it looks like this situation is being set up to where using this pandemic, which some people believe is not as serious as they say. The flu kills, every year so many people die of the flu. Okay, this is a normal part of life. I had a viral infection last year. There was no crisis or pandemic, and a lot of people had it. In the area here, that's all I heard about it. I was real sick, and there was a lot of people in the region that were just as sick as me. Okay? And if your health is bad, at any given point of the time, if you have some serious medical conditions, which I have some, but they're not serious enough to where a very bad flu or cold would, God, hopefully not finish me off or be fatal. And you see, this is where they're explaining it to people who are 80, 85 years old. If they get this virus, the percentage of the cases that will wind up being fatal are much higher than someone, say, that's 25 years old. Okay, this is what it all is. So it really isn't nothing new in terms of illness, but what is new is it's a global, the response. Okay, you try getting a global response on an even playing field or everyone agreeing on something, it's almost impossible, but it's happening. The same response, the same mechanism, and the same procedure is being carried out on a global level. This is either a test to see if it can be accomplished, which that in itself is kind of amazing. This has a global economic impact where you're talking the collapse of the monetary system throughout the world. But yet we're being reassured that billions upon billions of dollars are going to be available to cover all this. So everybody just stop what you're doing, stay put, seal off the borders, and we're all going to be okay. This kind of don't make no sense to me, because ever since that last big recession in 2008, 2009, whenever it was, I don't really believe our economy has recovered much. Since they elected President Trump, I have noticed, at least in my field of manufacturing, there's been a ton of manufacturing work for the last 4 years. There's been a strong flow of work. There's no worry about being laid off. Actually, the exact reverse. There are so many jobs where, I've never seen it, especially now. I've never seen it to where they are looking for people on such a continuous basis. Okay, there are a lot of open jobs. Now, some people argue, well, if they won't hire a lot of people or whatever. Well, you do, for the type of work I do, you do have to have some kind of skill. You do have to have some sort of self-discipline. And that's another thing. They don't have qualified people to fill a lot of these positions. That's another thing. So now we got this kind of floating in and out. And I'm wondering if we're going to go to some sort of global socialism, because I've never heard, we've had unemployment benefits and insurance. Unemployment is an insurance, okay? It was set up after the Depression, so if people lost their jobs, there's something that can tide them over for a few months till they get, another job. Well, that is insurance. That is not a government handout or something. Okay, a lot of European countries have a different type of social welfare system. A lot of the socialist based countries, which is most of Western Europe, and now after the collapse of communism, most of your Eastern European countries are in some form of that. But in the United States, which is a purely capitalistic country, and historically, whenever you're deregulated like we have been since the 90s, this economy bounces too much. Like the stock market goes way up, then drops way down, way up, way down, and it doesn't quite work well unless you have some controls. Combine this with the fact that most of these countries have also disarmed or outlawed legal ownership of firearms. Brazil, Australia, okay, I think New Zealand has fallen in that group down there. Canada, if they get a new prime minister, was going to ban all private ownership of firearms. So only the police and the military have guns, or retired police in the military have firearms, are the only private citizens which would have access to weapons. And this nonsense they tried in Virginia, where one of our states was trying to lean towards this, okay? To me, all of this is too much of a coincidence. Because what happens if this lockdown goes on for not just 14 days, what happens if this goes 2-3 months? Okay, think about that. You know, your money, all this, you know, how are they giving out so many billions of dollars to cover this? Where's the money coming from? This is what makes no sense. Oh, don't worry about it. We have released so many billions to cover this. All right, well, who the hell is going to end up paying for it? You're talking about shutting whole economies down. Are we going to come under some new type of semi-socialist, semi-fascist type of world government that's just going to dictate to all of us, you know, under the guise of a pandemic, install some sort of global government? You know, this is what is making me nervous. Kind of what I've come to the conclusions. Well, this video has been dragging on a bit too long, but that's where that's what it looks like. So, if things change as rapidly as they can, expect me to post another video in a couple days. But now it's not so much worried about being sick, it's just watching what happens to the situation around you as it unfolds. So, stay tuned. I may be back up with another one in 24 hours or 48 hours again.